Welcome, Abuja, and good afternoon to you. I hope indeed it's been a good day. It's been very, very lovely weather all through. So hopefully that's helped to calm things down, get your mind thinking in the right space. I mean, blessed are you if you didn't have to get up very early this morning to head out. And if you did, it's all good. I just hope everything came together and worked for you up until this time. It is 12 minutes gone past 3 o'clock. That means it's time for us to get into hard facts for today. As usual, it is 4 hours of interesting conversation, starting with the big three. I've got a very interesting guest with me in the studio. I'll introduce her shortly. And then we'll take us, big three will take us all the way up until 4:30, or where we get into the sound bites, after which we have our health and lifestyle segment, which takes off by 5 p.m. today. As usual, we've got SynLab, who is sponsoring the first quarter hour of the show, after which we'll have much more to talk about. That will take us to 6 p.m., where we hand the mic back to you for your eyewitness reports and situation updates. It is indeed going to be quite the day. My name is Somi, that's S-O-M-I, short for Somi, welcoming you to Hard Facts today. And I will be your host all the way through. And today we're doing it a little bit differently, yes, because as much as you know that we stream on Facebook and YouTube at Nigeria Info Abuja, again, Nigeria Info Abuja on Facebook and YouTube. We are also live on X Spaces. And no, this is not the one that has the conversation around our democracy. That's still happening on Friday. But we're going live on X Spaces today. Think of it as some kind of a test run. Okay, so you can join in whether on X Spaces, whether on Facebook or YouTube. You can join in anywhere on the big three this afternoon, which takes me to my guest. She is, drum roll, I want to do the drum roll, but I'm being extra dramatic. She is a lawyer, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators UK, a governance expert, a published author, a civic leader, and a 2027 presidential aspirant under the Democratic Leadership Alliance Party, Abisayo Busari-Akinnadeju. Busari-Akinnadeju is my guest this afternoon. Welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Somi. It's always a pleasure being here.
It's good to have you. It is. So we get into the big three straight away. In Abuja, you know that we have some of the biggest stories making the headlines. Let's get into the first one of them. Court has sustained the arrest warrant against ex-minister Sadiya Farouk. Yes, Federal High Court, a Federal Capital Territory High Court sitting in Abuja yesterday sustained the arrest warrant earlier issued against former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs Sadiya Umar Farouk over alleged fraud involving $1.3 million and 746.7 million naira. Justice Jude Onwuegbuzie held that the bench warrant issued against the former minister on April 16, 2026 will remain in force. Farouk is being prosecuted alongside Bashir Nura Al-Khali and Sani Nafiu Mohammed by the EFCC on charges bordering on alleged criminal conspiracy, abuse of office, and diversion of public funds. As she was first, the matter was arraigned, and she was supposed to make an appearance April 16th, where she did not make an appearance, and a bench warrant was issued to arrest the first defendant and also order her to appear in court. I think the lawyer at the time gave the reason of she not being in court at the time was some medical reasons or something along those lines. Well, she was then ordered to appear in court yesterday, which she also failed to do. And her lawyers are saying that she's out of the country on medical leave. And according to her lawyers, they would require her, that's the doctors in the country where she's being treated, would require her to remain there for another 2 months, which, of course, the judge was not having. And, he said that they should make sure she's arrested and brought back. Egypt is where she seems to have been since this whole time, from April 16 up until now. And so, yes, this is the reason that they are giving. The lawyer said that he received a medical report on his phone that she was in the hospital on the doctor's advice in Egypt and she will need time to recover before she can come. And so they asked for another adjournment. Justice Onwuegbuzie, however, frowned on what he described as repeated attempts to frustrate and delay the trial. At the last adjournment, he said the lawyer promised the court to produce her and so it would be impossible to grant another adjournment. He said, and I quote, "I will not tolerate unnecessary adjournment in my court. I will give you a short adjournment and you will go and bring her, even if she's in a wheelchair. And if she's not here, the court will do what it needs to do." Of course, we expect that the case will be prosecuted with or without her being in court, and what is due in terms of justice will come to her. But it's beginning to look like some kind of a trend. I mean, we just had Sally Maman also refusing to appear in court to the point that the court had to go ahead and convict and sentence him in absentia. But it's to me, and I would say this, it's beginning to look like it's making nonsense of our court proceedings. But let's leave me out of it. I have a guest here who is going to help me break this down. Now, this is someone who is facing a 21-count charge filed by the EFCC alongside former permanent secretary and one other person over this huge amount, $1.3 million and 746.7 million naira. Let's come to you, Abisayo. The EFCC revealed that this former minister's passport was released back in 2024 for medical treatment in Saudi Arabia and was never returned. Now her defense team is presenting another medical report from Egypt just hours before the arraignment, claiming a 2-month recovery period. I'm going to come to your background in law. As a legal practitioner, how do you view this development? And when an accused high-profile public official repeatedly fails to appear for arraignment due to overseas medical emergencies and just simply disappearing into thin air, where is the line drawn between a genuine right to health matters and an abuse of court processes just to stall the case?
That question is, it comes loaded. And that's because the pattern actually in Nigeria has revealed that especially those who occupy positions of power in this country has had very good excuses for not being available for trial when that time comes. Regardless of that, I definitely will not strip her of constitutional rights, which means she could have an excuse for really not being around a medical ground, as it were. But the truth is, we've seen that this has become more of a trend rather than the reality of what happens. Is the law weak in actually enforcing the rights of the average Nigerian when it comes to prosecuting anyone to be able to determine if they are actually guilty or not? First, I would say that the law and the judicial system of Nigeria has demonstrated over the time that it actually has the power, but it has not really demonstrated the will to go after people if they really want to. There are extradition treaties and permissions that allow you to bring the offender or the alleged offender to court if you have to. One thing you will see in the Nigerian judicial system is the man who stole Indomie is always ready and available to be prosecuted and to determine if he or she is guilty or not, or even kept behind bars for 500 days, 365 days before getting to the presence of a lawyer. But you see, high-profile Nigerians have developed the very good evasive method of not being around and quickly and easily wielding a medical report. Does that mean that Farouk does not have a medical condition that she's actually attending to? That would not really be on the table to say, but are there mechanism by which this can be verified, this can be confirmed? Yes.
But the courts are not exercising those mechanisms.
Yeah, so it's about accountability. You know, there are a lot of things that happen in Nigeria, and over the years, it seems that it's the way out for anybody. If people have tried it and the courts have kept silent and it keeps happening, and then the next 2 years, I can keep coming up with another form of infirmity, and nothing happens to that, then it will keep happening within the same political space within Nigeria. What I would expect, or what I would say, is sometimes the hand of the law is really not short. So we will be waiting to see how far the Nigerian legal system is willing to ensure that its processes are not made mockery of by citizens who have the power to live outside the country. And this is not in particular to this particular case, but just generally what we've seen over the years and what should be addressed. It's a signal to Nigerian citizens, actually, that you can actually evade the court at your will and not any other excuses or whimsical that you can have to put on the table.
Well, this particular story is still developing. It remains to be seen just how long the hand of the court will be in ensuring that she comes to answer for her case. But it does seem like there's a willingness to proceed even if she's not there. So perhaps the hand is not going to go past a certain extent, even when they have the ability to do that. Or really and truly are their hands tied when it comes to this case. I mean, look at Sally Maman, for example. What did the courts do, really and truly, except work on what the lawyers of the defendants said? You know, we've tried to find them, we can't find them. For some reason, we can't reach them. And it's like there's this look of helplessness. I know you have that legal background, so you might not want to speak too harshly on it. But in the face of what we're dealing with in this country, huge, unimaginable sums of money that is meant to serve the good of Nigerians being constantly diverted. Even if it remains to be proven, one would think that if they didn't have any issues, they would hastily make their way to these courts so that they will be done with. But you know, more and more we're seeing these things happen. But let's give it a little bit of a different angle. Let me come at you, looking at the amount in question, $1.706 and all of that. Help us paint a picture of what it is that this money ought to have done, and why we need to take these cases very...
Average Nigerian right there on the street. We know that the pain on the street is real. The life of an average citizen in this country is worth nothing in this country. The value placed on lives is zero. So imagine having that amount of money in the public space and doing the work for which it was meant to do. Lives will be better. Most people who are dead today probably will not be dead because they will have funds available for them to access the basic needs in the society. Now, that is why the charges are actually criminal in the real sense of it, even though it is still alleged and it's not established. But it should is, we're talking about the money of an average Nigerian out there. One of the things I've tried to advocate over the years is the fact that Nigerians are actually not aware of how rich they are. This money we're talking about could have made the life of an ordinary Nigerian citizen, and I use the word ordinary with care, Nigerian citizen better if it is rightly invested or rightly used to empower the nation. We talked about development. We want to have a developed nation. You can't have a developed nation if you do not have developed people. And if this money are released to the import of actually ensuring that Nigerian citizens' lives are better, and this money are diverted or cannot be accounted for, any individual, any person, any group of people found to be guilty of such diversions are actually meant to be held to the highest level of accountability and as well as consequences for such action. When you are called or saddled with such a responsibility and you are in charge of lives, and I mean lives because this money is equivalent of people's lives in Nigeria. If you are in charge of people's lives in Nigeria and you trade with this money or you abscond with this money or you handle this money with level of carelessness, it's as good as saying you're a murderer. Every child who dies for the lack of what the money could have done in her life or his life is on your block. And so when such instances happen in Nigeria, which has happened over the years, it's not the first time we're having an experience where millions and trillions have gone down the drain and it's not accounted for. Either a monkey took it off or a snake swallowed it, and then there will be some one or two boss lines on the news line. At the end of the day, nothing gets to happen. It's time for Nigerians, and when I say this, I mean it with all seriousness, all Nigerians, to start holding our leaders accountable for this. This cannot be done individually. It has to be done at the level of the existing systems, which is what takes us back to the drama that we're currently having. If the people that are in charge of lives of Nigerians are evasive for one reason or the other, there are laws, there are systems in place in this country guaranteed by the Nigerian Constitution as well that could actually help us to ensure that we bring people to justice. In a country where justice cannot be served, then indeed we have denied justice, and there can't really be a country that can last. On that note, I would say that we need to treat this issue as if you're talking about people who murder citizens of this country when you misappropriate funds that are meant for the Nigerian citizens.
Minister, or former Minister, Ms. Umar Farouk led a scandal-scarred Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, which championed the federal government's social security intervention funds, including the direct cash transfers, and school feeding. In September of 2020, the ICPC said its investigation revealed the diversion of 2.67 billion naira meant for school feeding during COVID-19-induced lockdown. The funds were reportedly intended for feeding boarding students in federal government colleges who were all at home during COVID-19 lockdown. Calls for her probe and possible prosecution intensified after she left office upon the completion of the second and final term of President Muhammadu Buhari in May 2023. On January 2024, the EFCC detained her for questioning over allegations of corruption in handling 37.1 billion naira social intervention funds during her tenure. And the EFCC's investigation follows reports of diversion of funds from her ministry. While all of this was going on, the minister was also ordered to account for much more money, another 729 billion naira that was supposed to feed 24.3 million poor Nigerians. She, Umar Farouk, has, however, emphasized her willingness to defend her actions, as seen in a tweet which she posted on X in the wake of the EFCC investigations into her. But we've not been able to see that willingness play out in actual fact because of this constant no-shows in the court. And so that's why we're having this conversation. Remember, her successor, Better Edu, also appointed by President Bola Tinubu in 2023, was also caught in a web of scandal shortly after she took office. Her matter is still pending, as we've not seen the results or the investigation, results of the investigation after she was probed. Which brings me to my last question for you on this before we open the phone lines. You've previously noted, Abisayo, that women possess distinct qualities that make them suitable for transparent leadership. When high-profile female ministers, I think in Sadia's case, she was a pioneer minister in this field, and someone of her cadre, a woman facing allegations of this nature, does it shift public or political conversation around gender and governance in Nigeria? Or is it a case of crime does not have any gender?
Solid. Definitely, crime actually does not have any gender. And I would say this, for every Nigerian woman that had gone down this similar trend, when you have past ministers of this Federal Republic of Nigeria being accused of one form of corruption or the other, that has actually, for a point, was almost becoming a trend. Every Nigerian leader appointed into a position of power ends up living with one either proven or not proved scandal. And I found something very interesting about that. It is not about the gender, actually, because this happens across both gender. But I actually say it as well, that leadership is not a gender-based thing. It's about our responsibility. It's about your credibility. It's about what you're ready to bring to power. Do women actually proceed as better in terms of transparency? Yes, we say it all. We want to hear her views. We want to say how it is. So when it comes to transparency and when it comes to accountability, when it comes to management, for a woman, it is natural actually to you to want to do that. What we have seen over the years, and I have actually one or two, without coming on the public with it, experience is people believing that the fact that a woman is naturally seen to be most likely more pious, more transparent, as put in the position of power to be used by the men for a cover-up whenever they want to act do one or two things that might be shady. And this is not necessarily in politics. Now, the individual will determine what they do with the office. So the fact that you're a woman does not automatically mean that when you're given a position of power, you are going to handle that power with a whole level of transparency that is required of you or above what your gender can bring to the table. It's about the individual. It's the track record. It's the lifestyle. And it's the purpose that is driving such an individual into such a position. To that extent, I would say that women have not lost the credibility that I would say they bring to the table, especially when situations are the way they are currently in Nigeria. I believe that we've had, permit me to go into that aspect, we've got over 16 men at different times as head of state or president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that has not in any way mean that corruption has stopped. Otherwise, she would have said it means men are the ones that are transparent. That is why Nigeria is now on that level. But we've not even had the option of having one woman sit in that office. So to judge on that basis would be maybe just picking three. This current Senate having 4 women out of all the other senators, and then you say, oh, one woman misbehaved out of the 4 out of them, and that's a statistic to weed in the face of women. I would think that is not statistically balanced. So in that hand, I'll say women, they still bring to the table what a lot of men, even in homes and marriages, want to know when it comes to management, the affairs of the family, both of the men and even the children and extended families. Women are naturally gifted. Permit me to sound a bit biased on that.
Your bias is excused. All right. Coming back to the story at hand, we're having somebody who's supposed to have been in court 2 times now at a point a bench warrant for her arrest was issued, and still no response coming from that end. Looking at the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, right? And the excuse is medical, as we've seen in many other instances. Now, coming to the phone lines for you, is this medical leave becoming the ultimate escape clause for high-profile trials in Nigeria, or should the law wait for health and give them the benefit of the doubt? Let's talk about that and any other thoughts you want to share on the story. It's 0809-597-4869. On WhatsApp, 0809-993-0137. Is the hand of the law going to be long enough to catch up with these high-profile cases? Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
My name is Adela Victor from Busari-Akinnadeju.
All right, sir. Go ahead.
The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and the Poverty Reduction was established during Busari-Akinnadeju as an intervention ministry to help the poor, not the rich. But unfortunately, that ministry has become a conduit where billions are confined by the big boys and big women. Very sad. We have been hearing of billions being pumped to that ministry and fund. And the need and the money is not better to the talented people, the poor people. So they will come out and release billions that they have shared billions into Nigeria. Now look at the billions these 2 women have embraced in that ministry. Now, every time the law want to catch up with them, they continue to complain they are sick. But when they are seeing this money, they are not sick. It's the money that is something there. When you eat the money belongs to the dead and the living, the money will haunt them. So the money is going to haunt them. Now they have the money. Some of them, they have built houses all over the world. Are they really enjoying the houses? Are they really? Now, some of them, when they are sick, they try to for treatment. And they don't see solutions because they have sustained and oppressed the Nigerian masses. So the Nigerian masses do not need to pay or cost them. Let them continue to eat poison. Poison is something there. So they have the money.
All right,
at
sir.
times they don't have solutions to their challenges. Thank you.
Okay. Not quite sure where the poison narrative came from, but medical leave is what these people are using. Our concern is the hand of the law long enough to catch up with these people? We've got this case that is looking like it might pan out like a Saleh Maman case. Do Nigerians see justice as having been done if these people continue with this pattern of not showing up in court? Let's talk about it. Good afternoon. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, good evening.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my name is Suleiman, calling from Masaka.
All right, so go ahead.
Yeah, I love this topic this evening. And my major joy is that you brought in a lawyer. Because we've seen the judge at the but the brain behind all these criminals invading justice and running away because of hate at the advice of the lawyers. They are the one. Just look at it. Somebody has been accused, he was in court. After then, he has run away to Egypt. And every day from excuse to excuse, nothing. And a lawyer will be in the court and begin to defend such a woman. It's terrible in this country. It's really terrible. I just pray because every day now we used to hear, the judges are the problem, judges are the problem, judges are the problem. How is the judge the problem now? He gave a bench warrant, and the woman refused to obey. The lawyer refused to convince the woman to come because the lawyer had been compromised by the woman. Just look at it. So thank you. That is my contribution.
All right, thank you. Abisayo, I saw you nodding your head in agreement to when he said the lawyers are the problem. Is that really what we're seeing here? The judiciary or the how would they call them now? The lawyers. Are they part of? They're part of the judiciary, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so they are the ones compromising.
No, so the truth is, when it comes to law is described as an ass, which means that, and it has two heads. So if you're facing me today, I'm your defense lawyer, the angle from which I might be coming might be different from the angle from which you will be probably seeing me if I were the one prosecuting. So if you were defending a client, the law permits you to look at the merit of your client's case and state it to the best of the interest of your client. But all things that I would say is under that same legal profession, we know that we are ministers in the temple of justice. So regardless of your client's interest, the lawyer is meant to know that as a minister in the temple of justice, the justice actually supersedes every other personal gain you might be having in your profession. And there's something I actually wanted to state out here. It's not that the hands of the law is short. Within the Nigerian system, what we have currently that is probably the restriction is the fact that the person being called to appear before the court is currently not within Nigeria. Assuming that this happened within the country, it's easier for you to order that who should be brought to court. But are there ways by which this can still be enforced? The court can order an independent medical confirmation to ensure that, okay, this is actually genuine. And it is not just an excuse to avoid the hand of the law. What might be missing sometimes, because it's not just the work of one person. Everybody has a role to play. The lawyer in court has a role to play. The prosecutor has a role to play. The judge has a role to play. And of course, she has done her own by ensuring or insisting that by the next adjourned date, she wants all mechanism of state to be moved to ensure that this person had appeared to answer to this call. Not that she is already adjudged as guilty. And that's the funniest part of it. What we're saying is, come before the court and defend yourself so that at least we can know where exactly this lies. And, the summary of it all for me is justice that is seen to only be strong when it comes to the weak, and weak when it comes to the powerful in country is nothing but the theater. And that is not the kind of legal system Nigeria deserves. When I talk about Nigeria... But
it's what we have.
Yeah, it's predominantly what you would see happening in the environment. And these are the things that have broken the trust of the average Nigerian man. When justice is broken, you can't actually have that peace. There's an adage that says that the hope of the poor man is the court. If you know that you can access justice, then you have the peace that somebody can at least hear your case. In the case of Nigerians, and I say Nigerians, that this money should have been used for, justice is not going to be served until the person that had the control of this finance comes before the court to state her case or defend. But in the absence of that, are there other ways by which this case can go on and not be stored? I believe definitely so. We're also in a state of, we're advancing technologically. If you have to do a virtual hearing, if it has to come to that, and this person can be adjudged to be able to speak in one form or the other, and there's a lot of verification done in place. If you're really serious about it, I want to use the word political will. It's also part of it, of every state machinery involved in this. And this is how we treat cases in Nigeria. How important is this to us? Are we going to stall until it gets swept under the carpet again like every other thing that happened some 10, 15, 5 years ago? Or this is just going to be a case in time that tells everybody that you can't joke with Nigerians when it comes to their resources?
All right, let's get back to the phone lines. Good afternoon. Hello?
Hello?
Okay, if you could please turn down the volume of your device around the time you're calling so that it doesn't interrupt the flow. We're still on X Spaces. We're streaming live there. So for those of you who are attending virtually, you have questions to ask, you can indicate so that we can bring you in on the conversation as well. It's at Nigeria Info Abuja. Nigeria Info Abuja. Yes, on X, right? There we go. Nigeria Info FM Abuja on X, if you want to join in virtually. Ask your questions there and we'll take you on as well. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Yes, welcome.
My own contribution is this. If this woman were to be tried, why is it that the security people should not be placed on the radar of this woman so that she will never escape or sneak away out of the country?
Okay.
I don't know whether you capture what I'm saying.
You're saying that the security operatives who let her leave should also be held accountable?
If it were, yes, they are supposed to be held accountable, because if the woman were to be placed or to be tried in this country in respect of this case, the EFCC that initiated this trial should have placed their people on the radar of this woman so that she will never sneak away out of this country. So that to blame in a way.
Okay. Noted indeed. They do have a role to play. I don't think we can excuse them, because according to the Premium Times report, her passport was handed back to her by the EFCC. So in a way, they had some role to play. But at the same time, is it not also on the judge to demand that her passport be withheld? I'm not quite sure how that process works, but I think sometimes you have a pronouncement that is made to say, okay, even if you're going to go out on bail, these are the conditions for your bail. Your passport would be withheld and all of that. I don't have the particulars as far as those details of the case, but solid point there that you made from the last caller. Neme from Asokoro says, I want us to devote more attention to the other enablers, civil servants, commercial banks, and the NFIU, who seem to be lame duck agencies because these criminally minded ministers were not acting in silos. The security and financial crime agencies should devote more time in hurling these enablers into detention cells for negligence of responsibilities. Finally, past and present heads of government have been paying lip service to this financial corruption, which has become epidemic in nature in Nigeria, because allegedly at their minds they're also planning to dip their hands into the cookie jar. Neme from Asokoro with this one. Okay, we'll take all the other comments and then get our guests to respond to some of your thoughts. Israel says, when they are looting, they are not sick. But when it's time to give accounts, they either collapse or are in hospitals. That's a sign of a curse on them. You can still have money and be cursed. But the question is that now that we don't have lawmakers who can make it mandatory through legislation for looters to account their stewardship to conclusion before seeking any medical trips, what do we do to stop the thieves who want to steal in future? Because the bigger ones are not even yet born. Sadia Omar Farouk must be extradited to face prosecution. That's what Israel had to say on that. Concerned Nigerian, Daddy Shunammite from Gida Mangoro says, I was shocked to see former Minister Betta during Port Harcourt, Rivers State, representing Senator Oluremi Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the First Lady of Federal Republic of Nigeria, in an empowerment function, on top of the allegations of corruption hanging on her. Why are some people untouchable, is the question that he's asking, and he says it is well. Mr. Aisa says, we need to take the issues of corruption so serious because it's really killing us in this country. Corruption is killing us like bandits, is what he said. The money meant for the project, one person will divert it for his or her family. Where's that coming from? What is that? Mr. Aisa, please, we need more clarity on that comment. Money meant for the project, one person. Let's have... Oh, the money meant for the project, one person will divert it for his or her family use. All right. Abisayo was a bit concerned on that one, weren't you? Okay. Let's take one more comment and then we'll go to the next story. When snake swallowed money in INEC, monkey ate money in JAMB. Nothing happened. So why are they calling Sadia now? The court has been reduced in size because some judges are now compromised. That's Chimezie Nwafo from Gwagwalada. Any comments on this real quick before we move to the next story? Comments from the listeners.
I think in rounding up, what I'll probably say to this is the system, and I keep going back to the Nigerian system. The systems actually needs total re-engineering.
The judicial system.
The judicial, not just the judicial. Every aspect of Nigeria really needs a lot of working to be done. If you do not structure your country in such a way that from point A to point B, there's accountability, there's transparency, and there are consequences for failure and what brings people to book. Instances and cases like this will keep happening. And I'll probably land on this just for my viewers or anybody listening at this point to know that in the absence of Farouk, and I wish her a very long life, but assuming she's not there, are we saying that this thing will go down? So really, if we want to trace this money, I believe the government and the people and everybody involved in tracing how this money was actually appropriated should roll up their sleeves and get to the real fact and stop hiding just behind the guise of one particular woman that may actually even be sick. So let us trace the money. Where is it?
Indeed. I think that would take me to Neme's comment when he talked about every other person in the, let's call it a value chain now, that made it possible for this to happen. As for the civil servants, I think the former permanent secretary who was working with her at the time was present in court. One other person named was also present in court. So these people have been making their appearances in court to be able to answer and defend themselves. However, when it comes to the NFIU, I think that's one area of particular concern that we've not really paid attention to, because we know that banks, at least in one case that we've seen, I can't remember which one it is, I think it was in Malami case, it was made clear that banks alerted some of these institutions to these transactions that are supposed to draw their attention, and yet nothing was done about it. So perhaps there should be a focused light set also on the likes of the NFIU and some of all these other institutions that enable for these monies to just vanish. But let's move to the next story. It's still on a court matter, if you will, but more of a regional court this time around. The Community Court of Justice, ECOWAS, has ordered the Federal Republic of Nigeria to urgently decongest its correctional facilities and end the prolonged detention of awaiting trial inmates. The court also gave Nigeria 6 months to submit a detailed compliance report, including updated statistics on the number of inmates released or prosecuted. In a ruling delivered on 15th of May 2026 and made public through a statement on Monday, the court held that the continuous detention of large numbers of awaiting trial inmates, coupled with overcrowded prison conditions, violated several provisions of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And so the court found that the situation breached the rights to liberty, dignity, fair hearing, presumption of innocence, and the right to trial within a reasonable time under the Charter, as well as Nigeria's obligations to uphold international human rights standard. Now, this case was filed by the Center for Community Law, which is a non-governmental organization, which argued that a significant portion of Nigerians' prison population comprises of awaiting trial inmates, many of whom are detained for bailable offenses and held beyond legally permissible periods. Relying on official statistics, the applicant stated that out of over 79,000 inmates, more than 52,000 were awaiting trial, describing the situation as evidence of systemic failure in the justice and correction system. Nigeria, on their part, has denied these allegations, arguing that the detentions were lawful and that correctional facilities were adequately equipped, while also challenging the standing of the applicant to bring the case. They are saying, ECOWAS, you have no right to be bringing this case against us. Who are you really and truly? So let's start with the legality, the jurisdiction, and the teeth of this ruling. Does ECOWAS really have the standing to do this to Nigeria, first off?
Yeah, it's part of the treaty we signed up to. The truth is, I understand the sovereignty limitation that you probably want to put when it comes to dealing with organizations like the ECOWAS. But, you know, I want to probably say that as a member of that body, what we've had over the years, and this is not, and I would say Nigeria is very notorious, permit me to use the word, when it comes to actually following the rulings from ECOWAS, where even though we are sitting at the helm of affairs when it comes to that,
Pretty
or when
much,
it comes
yes,
to implementing suggestions that come from it, I probably want to look at it more from the angle of what is ECOWAS asking Nigeria to do? Is it something that is overreaching? Are they overreaching, or are they actually naming something that is of note within the country? And I'll be speaking not just from the legal perspective, I was speaking from personal experiences and engagement. I spent my service year working on prison decongestion. And so for a fact, I can say that behind bars today are people who are there waiting for appearance before a judge, but their cases are not yet mentioned. And when I started that at that time, what drew me into it is when you do prison visitation, you get to meet people who are on a waiting trial, who has never appeared before a court. When you read their charges, some have been behind bars for 2 years or 3 years. Assuming they were found guilty, they probably would have spent lesser time. And so they are there behind bars for a time longer than what they would have served, even if they were found guilty. That is, if they were found guilty. What if they were found innocent? So those were the early times in my legal profession where we're advocating that, okay, beyond all this, let's say the system is slow, the courtrooms are not funded enough, you don't have enough lawyers to take up these cases, because the indigent people, they're the ones majorly who land behind bars for that long period of time.
Indigent people?
Yeah, people who can't afford the services of a lawyer, who do not understand how to perfect their bail terms. Those are the real life experiences.
So no high and mighty there?
Oh, no, hardly would you find them waiting for trials, because they would find the expedited day, they will get lawyers to bring their cases up on time, and then they don't get to land behind. So when it comes to prison decongestion, the majority of the people behind bars are the children of the low and the poor who do not know. So I'll probably just cite a particular example of someone that we met who was meant to perfect a bail term of 200,000 naira. And he was there, it's been there for about 2 years. And when we spoke with him, he said, I don't have 200,000. My family, and this was a long time ago though, my family does not have 200,000. And I said, okay, what do you have? What are the machines that you have? And then we're able to listen. You don't necessarily have to bring 200,000 naira to the courtroom. But because they were not educated to know that they could actually perfect their bail terms, that boy was left behind bars for 2 years without getting to court on a waiting trial.
So what ECOWAS is asking Nigeria to do
is to audit the people behind your bars. And I would say Nigeria do not need ECOWAS anything from ECOWAS to do this, because the law already provides for this. We already have a law that talks about how many days you're meant to be at the police custody, how many period you're meant to be before you're brought before the judge. So these laws are currently in our criminal administration system. Are they being implemented? What is wrong? Why are we not implementing it?
Who's supposed to implementing it?
So
who's supposed to implement this?
So it's a case of I pick up a police officer, probably something happened around the street. Someone call your attention that somebody stole. It's an allegation, yet not proven. You picked up the boy, you took him to your station. Less than 24 hours maximum after that, you should present this accused person before a trial magistrate judge to determine the guilt of this person. But then sometimes the courtrooms are so oversaturated, they can't even hear the cases of those who are currently coming in. We don't have enough room. Some of those courtrooms we used to go to in Lagos are smaller than 10 feet and all that. So they are so small, they can't even accommodate all the number of people that are behind bars. And so when you have such instances, you do not get to see the judge on time. And so they keep calling your case, they will give you another date. You can stay behind bars and you don't get to appear before a magistrate to even determine if you are guilty or not. So when they go through some of those periods, sometimes you will go before a judge, a magistrate, and then you are granted bail. So they say, you are granted bail in so amount. Until you perfect it, definitely you can't leave the prison. So they are taken back into the prison system, waiting for them to perfect the bail. If the right education is not there, if you don't have a lawyer who knows, this is what you need to do to get out, you will be there waiting for 200,000, 500,000 to perfect the bill because your parents do not have it. You'll be waiting. So you can't fulfill your bail terms. The next time you are meant to appear, the judge might not come on time as well. Do not forget this person cannot afford the services of a lawyer. So they are there. And many, many cases. So I've handled cases, even when I stop handling directly going to the courtrooms to advocate for these people on a free pro bono basis. If I get to hear that, somebody's behind bars on this, I still look for lawyers. And I would actually acknowledge the effort of people like the legal aid, because I remember when I was working on this on my own, I had to reach out to them, write letters to them. They have lawyers who, out of their free time, would say, I'm willing to take up this Office of the Public Defenders and all those ones. We have some of those machineries in place. Are they enough for the number of Nigerians that are behind bars? Maybe not. And that is probably why you would find an NGO that instituted this case on behalf of thousands of Nigerians that are behind bars to say, let us compel this system to work, to make sure that they take an audit of everybody behind bars. For example, like I said, I engaged someone and he's been there for almost 3 years, not having appeared before a magistrate once for an offense that if he were to be found guilty, he will spend 3 years. So he has practically served the sentence before appearing before a judge or magistrate. And if you were to find innocent, what happened to you?
So, again, I'm concerned because you have an ECOWAS, for example. Let's say Nigeria, removes her shoulder pads and says, okay, we're going to do what you're asking us to do. We're not proud because this is something that has to be done. There are rights that are being violated. There's so many things that we've signed, that we're treaty to, that we're violating because we're carrying on in this manner. Is it now going to rest on NGOs to find lawyers to get these people to go before a judge? Or does the Attorney General of the Federation have a role to play in saying, look, okay, this and this and this is what we need to do? They must have some data. I want to believe that they have manual data that shows who is in their prisons, how they got there, what is pending for them to be able to come before a judge or get judgment or whatever. Who then takes this up is my big concern. Let's leave the theatrics of you don't have the right to do this to us. This is a critical human issue that we're addressing. Who is supposed to handle this?
I would, I have for years I avoided putting blames at the top office because I believe that every individual is meant to be part of it. But I would say that at the level that things are in Nigeria right now, if I were to be Nigerian president as I'm speaking to you right now, I'll probably set up a presidential prison decongestion group of people, and that would comprise it of lawyers because it is actually sitting at that level at this point where it has to come from that level, not just the NGOs, individuals who do it based on available funds, but a national issue to say that regardless of what ECOWAS has said, these are the laws that we have in Nigeria. Okay. Are we putting, are these laws in effect? Why are they not in effect? So you need to look at it. We are not, prison decongestion is age-long problem in the legal system. It's been said over the years, it's been advocated. Like I said, as an individual, I have tried, but have I removed the number of Nigerians that are still behind bars? So it has to be done at a higher level and at that scale for us to really, really reduce the number of people that are awaiting trials. Also, the over-arrest by police actually has to be addressed.
Let's come back to that. We've got the news at the top of the hour. Let's come back to that because that's also a critical point. We'll take the news at the top of the hour and the Big Three will continue right after. Stay with us.
Back and back of the biggest talk on the number one station.
Okay, that's okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. Let me explain. It's okay. She off your mic.
On 95.1
Nigeria Info. Your mic is always on. Let's talk.
With 27 years of unbroken democratic rule in Nigeria since 1999, what have we gained? Where have we faltered? And where do we go from here?
It's time for the big conversation. 95.1 Nigeria Info FM Abuja presents its first virtual town hall meeting on X Spaces. Theme: examining Nigeria's Fourth Republic, the gains, the failures, and the roadmap forward.
We're bringing the heavy hitters to the mic.
Aisha Yusufu, human and political rights activists and politicians.
Security experts Kabiru Adamu, Adamu, policy and development experts, Edosa Oviawe, legal luminary and human rights lawyer, Dr. Maxwell Okpara, broadcast veteran, Carl Nabwefe Orakwe, and chief economist, Paul Alaje.
Join the dialogue. Set your reminders. Date is Friday, May 22nd, 2026. Time 3 p.m. prompt. Where? On X. Follow at Nigeria Info ABJ to join the space.
95.1 Nigeria Info FM. Let's talk.
Trying to say we should blame the lawyers. You see that lady of justice, that they need to blindfold. So long as that woman's one eye is left open to be doing selective justice, there is no way we can get it right. So until everything becomes blind, that woman's eye is blindfolded. You don't care about who is who. Just as your guys say that the law is strong where the weak is, and when it comes to the big and the mighty, it becomes weak. That is just the problem. It's not a question of apportioning blame to this or to that. So we must just, the law must be a respecter of no one at all. If at all we are to get it right. Thank you.
All right then. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob.
Can you turn down the volume of your device, please?
No, I'm always very far from my second room.
All right, go ahead, please.
This issue of money that was stolen by the, and also stolen by the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. But due to COVID-19, some of us, myself and others, cry in this station. Then how can children be in, can say holiday or COVID-19? The school was locked down, and so we to feed, use the money to feed the people that are children that already in their parents' home. They cried and cried and cried. Some government officials were defending the process that time. So one thing I see in it, these are our leaders, especially the president and others. they look certain things with eye closed. If that time when people were crying, all Nigeria know that money will be stolen. That everybody was crying in this station. That time, anybody who called that time. If the president, he was hearing it that time, if he said, say no, stop that, the children are in school. This money would have not been stolen. But Mr. President, the late president, keep quiet. Suppose that I say, no, we don't want that type of thing now. Students, the children are locked at home. Nobody is going to school. The money will not be stolen.
Okay.
So our leader who have voice to say, stop this, the thing will stop. They keep close eye. They close their eye to all these evil that are going on. If you want all this thing to be corrected, money, if the public were crying against certain things in this country today, especially money, if these are correct presidents say, no, stop it. I don't want that money to be dispersed. The money will be stopped.
All right.
Now the woman has run away with the money. Now we're crying here. At the end of the day, cash in now. Cash in now. They will say, okay, the second thing to Somi. What of the money that are stolen?
All right, sir. Thank you for your thoughts. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma.
Welcome.
Okay. The night is calling for them. There's a case someone to get before the masses.
Go ahead, please.
We just want to know what we just did in this country. You understand? This money was allocated for this project. And I believe federal government is got this money. You understand? This money keep on staying in one person's pocket, you understand? And you bring this record. Nigerians are demanding for this money. You keep on turning today, tomorrow. Is that just this? But is this money allocated to this project? Yes. And children are in holidays. Even the blind man know. What are they telling us? And if I thought the judiciary fail, who are we going to hold responsible? They should just tell us. That is just a foundation of it. If the judiciary fail, who are we going to hold? I believe if the Minister of Justice to intervene and say, the judge do what is right, or the president do what is right. I believe they will apply their correction, but everybody keep quiet. And now Nigerians are commenting.
Okay.
To me, I think the place should go for the big ones, you understand? They are the fault of all these things.
Okay.
It has become a tradition. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Donatus from Niger State. On WhatsApp, who do we have here? Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
Welcome.
Yeah, hi. My name is Wisdom. I just want to speak on the last part where your guests were talking before we went for the news. When he talks about taking people to court. So I've been a victim of police refusing to take me to the court. One time I had issue with in the police station, precisely Metaman police station. And could you believe that I was in cell for 61 days? 61 days. And the issue I had, it was a case of breach of trust. And something was given to me which I ended up using for my personal use. And after the day I was arrested was on a Friday. On Tuesday, I was arrested on Friday. And on Tuesday, I was able to replace the thing and give it to the owner. But I was still in cell for 61 days. And the reason why that can happen is because those police, they don't like to take people to court. Because there is this thing, they will ask you to pay yourself, to call your family. And then they will set a price tag on your head. Now, if they take you to court, they will miss out from that whatever they will have got if you are with them. So once the case has, maybe the complainer has been settled, so they feel like the complainer has gone with with whatever its anger was. So now they will not hold you. Let them take you to court, they will not. So I was in that cell for 61 days, and the issue I have was resolved 5 days after I was arrested. So I ended up spending over 50-something days extra until the money they asked me to pay, I have to pay almost 500,000 before they let me go. And I was never taken to court. If I was taken to court, there is no way, even if I have pleaded guilty, my fine will not be 500,000. They even told me to bring 1 million. It was after begging before they had to collect the 500,000. So it's the police that don't like taking people to court. That's why you see, what did you call it? People spending more time to just round up quickly. And when people eventually will go to court, the lawyers too are not being fair. You see an issue that you're supposed to just go to court and plead guilty and go and do your 3 months and go home. The lawyer will tell you that you should say you're not guilty. Before you know, you will spend 3 years in remand.
Wow.
You understand? Because they will tell you that you can, if you say you are guilty, you cannot be a governor, you cannot be a president. Who told you who told you must you be the president of this country? Can't you go and do other things? Before you know, they will take you to remand. Before you know, you will spend 6 years, 5 years in a crime that you will have just pleaded guilty. They will give you 3 months, 6 months, you will serve it and go your way.
Okay.
Or your lawyer will lie to you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Interesting. Okay. The man from Masokoro says it's not a lie that over 60% of the inmates in these prisons needed not to be there, but because of the hierarchy of the correctional service, they are allegedly using these persons as collateral damage because they use them to collect annual allocation for feeding and other welfare while dishing out substandard meals and subhuman services to these inmates. It's a clear fact. All right. Neme with that one. We're in a country where even the police used to invade places and make unwarranted arrests in order to meet mandates from their superior. So if you're unlucky and you happen to be in such locations at that point, life happens. So many innocent people who cannot meet bail conditions are rusting in detention. Families don't even have trace of some. This is Israel with that comment. And then good afternoon, Somi. Your guest has captured my fancy with her sound, in-depth analysis. Well, it seems medical leave has been the bedrock of asylum and fugitives for extremely corrupt bourgeoisie. Can it be applicable to an ordinary Nigerian? The question is rhetorical, I guess. Another thing is our judiciary credible enough to handle offenses of the rich and influential gurus in Nigeria? Questions begging for accountability here. I leave Nigeria's affairs to God because the government has seemingly failed woefully. Tom from Gwarimpa with that one. All right, we'll take one call and then we'll get to the final story of the day. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is CJ from Outer Valley.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, honestly, to me, I do the question where we are asking, does federal government are really fighting corruption? To me, is no. I don't see how you will charge person, sentence them 75 years imprisonment in absentia. In that the rate of that crime, you say you sentence the person 75 years without seeing that person. Where is DSS? Where is the AFCC? Where is the SS? Where is the Interpol? Where that man is in any part of this world, which government cannot find him, then you are coming to tell us that you sentence him 75 years in absentia. Where this thing happens, which is part of the country of the world, such a sentence. We know that James Omotosho is just playing the gallery of the government. What they told him to do is that's what he is doing. Because this thing cannot happen in any part of the world.
Okay.
In 30-something million naira. You 30-something billion naira. You sentence the person in absentia. No. It's not acceptable.
All right.
It's just playing us anyhow, hanky-panky. Not believe it. And even government, they are not fighting the motive of setting EFCC and SSC. They have already defeated it. They are just fighting their political enemies. That is my take. Thank you.
All right, thank you, CJ. We'll come back to more of your thoughts and contributions after this final story. The All Progressive Congress apparently disqualified 47 aspirants seeking the party's senatorial tickets ahead of its primary elections, which were scheduled for yesterday across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The party disclosed it in a statement signed by its National Publicity Secretary, Felix Morka, and the statement was accompanied by the list of aspirants not cleared to participate in the Senate primary elections. According to the statement, the decision followed the party screening committee's screening of aspirants conducted in line with established procedures and guidelines. Although the APC did not disclose specific reasons for disqualifying the affected aspirants, the development is said to have affected several notable political figures, including several lawmakers and former, public officials. The list is there, 47 names. I cannot go through them, but there are quite a number of senatorial districts touched on: Adamawa, Bayelsa, Cross River, Delta, FCT even. We've also got Jigawa, Kebbi, Kwara, Nasarawa states on the list as that senatorial districts affected. Niger State, Oyo, Taraba, Plateau, Rivers, Zamfara, and a host of others. The APC also disqualified several aspirants from Oyo State, including Ademola Ali, Ajimobi Adegboyega, Kolapoboye Desi, and Akinremi Bolaji, alongside the other ones disqualified. I think notable to this conversation more than anything is the fact that it did seem like there was an arbitrary sort of decision-making regarding this process. And we see that political parties often use technical screening requirements such as certificates, party loyalty, dues, documentation as a tactical tool to clear the path for favored establishment candidates under the guise of due process. Looking at the legal issue lens, or looking through the legal lens, when a party disqualifies 47 aspirants in one fell swoop, is this a genuine commitment to strict constitutional adherence, or are we looking at the legal weaponization of party guidelines to clear the field for an anointed candidate?
Okay, great. So, as usual, I'm a presidential aspirant.
Yes, you are.
A different political party. And so really, how will go the way of the Lord that says, basically, and over the years, what has been seen is when things like this happen, it is described as internal
party
affairs. And of course, but when you see this becoming a trend, and I can't call it a trend because if you look at that course, it's not such, it's happening at such a scale that you can call it a national issue. Because it's beginning to show that where exactly, when you limit the choices that the people will have eventually to a selected field that is based on favoritism or, like you said, the anointed candidate, then what you've actually done in the overall is actually to limit the choices of the people to the ones that you have decided have to go ahead. Which is why, even though all these affairs are referred to as internal politics, the Electoral Act and also plays a role there, because it expects that every political party will adhere to the Constitution and the manifesto of its party, which are always submitted in advance to the umpire, which means that for you to belong to a political party, what are the ideologies of your party? And permit me to go on to that. For a number of years, I was non-partisan. And the reason was I hardly could find a party in Nigeria that I believe represents the ideology that some of us, the real Nigerians, permit me to say that, actually want to have, where you can say this is what these parties stand for. You can't say you're promoting democracy and we do not see the emblem of democracy even in your internal party affairs. And this has something to do with one party. It's not about APC. It is across board. Every political party in Nigeria, what ideology do they stand on? That Nigerians can, if your internal affairs can actually reflect to Nigerians that, oh, there is hope. If they can conduct their affairs in this particular manner, the Nigerian men could have, or women could have hope that what will come out of your party is actually something to run with. And that's where we have trust deficit in Nigeria. So while I will leave the internal affairs of APC to how they conduct it, they must know that the world is watching, being the party sitting at the number one office in the country, and the ruling party as well. Their internal affairs sends out signal to Nigerians as to what to watch out for. I'll say this to every other political party out there. Nigerians, you are the machinery that leads to power in this country. The citizens have been investing their power in your candidates. And so if the process that determines the people you present to Nigerians as candidates is flawed by favoritism, by anointed people who pay obedience to the fathers, in quote, or who are backed by those in power, or rotational leadership that has to stay within a particular family and is not open to an ordinary Nigerian, then do you really practice democracy in the real sense of it? People have said democracy does not work for Africa. The truth is, do we even know what democracy is? Are we practicing democracy in the political party level, at the national level, at the state level, at the local level? To the citizens? And permit me to refer, I keep saying permit me because there are a lot of things in my head sometimes, and I'm wondering, where are we in Nigeria? So for a long time, I did this I'm a Nigerian thing, saying that Nigerian, you can't have democracy, and that's me pivoting to what Lee Kuan Yew said when he looked at all the British colonies, and he said, I'm yet to find a British colony that practiced democracy that succeed. And he said the major reason for the failure of democracy succeeding in all this colony is they don't have an educated electorate. So if the people do not know their power, if they do not know their strength, if they do not know what belongs to them, how then can they hold people accountable? If I want to contest under a political party and I do not have, if I'm already, by your constitution, if I'm already sidelined, how do I participate in the governance of my country? I'm very, very particular about that aspect for Nigerians, either as a member of a political party or as a candidate within your party, as an aspirant. You must know what the law says, you must know your law, and you must come to the table with those things. And party officials, the working committee, and the ones that are currently in power that are from that particular parties, you need to pay attention to what you're doing. Posterity will still judge all of us. And that's the reason why some of us eventually decided to go into politics and not leave it for people, for a particular sector of people. I'm saying that this politics is not a business of some particular sect. Politics is the pipeline that leads to power of this country, and we cannot continue to leave it in the hands of people we cannot trust. If we cannot trust you, then we should look for people we can trust that we can hand power over to.
So looking at it from an educational point of view, we have the APC, the biggest party in the country, some would say even in West Africa at this point in time, and we've seen how the politics within the party is playing out. And if we were to speak to the issues that we see really and truly, you're seeing defections on a large scale and political opportunism taking center stage in the biggest party that we have in the country as it is. Does this expose how transactional Nigerian politics has become, where it's all about the rewards that I'm going to get, and so you have these movements happening, and because everybody's trying to be opportunistic, some of the fallouts that you have from what we saw from this disqualification is a lot of people are aggrieved, and I think at some point, if we even look at it from the lawmakers generally, we're seeing that the same electoral act that they appended is working against them, because it is making it difficult for them to, move as much as they would have liked to. But what we're seeing on the grand scale is political opportunism. How do we correct that in the Nigeria of today?
Thank you. This it's a big issue for Nigeria. And I will start by saying that what we've seen over the years, and it's not just right now, it's been happening for a number of years, and it's just become so worse in the last 8 years, where you see everybody is called cross-carpeting. I wake up today, I'm not, my ambition of realizing a particular position is not being realized, then I'll move to the next party. It became what George Orwell described in Animal Farm as when you look at the animals and the human beings, you can't tell which is which, because they all look the same. And that is why people keep defecting, because the parties share basically no differences in whatever they are bringing to the table. All it is a politician wearing another uniform in another place. What they are bringing to the table, it's getting into that place. And that is why, and I'll go down to what is happening on the street. The reason why Nigeria seems to be going around in circle is because the political climate of this country has become one that is only geared towards one end, to occupy a position, not to serve the people. Service is you're appealing to people. Let me serve you. It will show in your behavior. It will show in how you carry out your activities. And I say to all Nigerians, when you see someone that have to wait until they hold on to a political position in Nigeria before they do anything for the average Nigerian, it shows where their heart is. They're looking for the position. They're not looking out for your interest. So when you would move from this party to the other, and people will join the vehicle that will get them to power. That is what you see when you see them defecting. If they realize that, Labour Party 2023, that's what's on the braining block. Everybody moved to Labour. But when you realize, the person at the end of affairs seems to be in charge and might most likely win most of the tickets in 2027, then you all run to that place. So you have a lot of defections. But when you get to that defection, you probably have not realized that the other party that you have gone to join is probably also doing its own mathematics on how to weaken the other party. And so at the end of the day, it's the case of should I call bandwagon joining bandwagon? No, they're all leading to nowhere. If Nigeria will move forward as a country, we need leadership that is clear. We need leadership that is for the people. We need people's voice in government. And I'll land on this. There's something we've had over the years. For years, I hear the questions in Nigeria. in Nigeria, in every sector, people ask this question: why is it that this is happening? Why are we having this? Now the questions need to be answered, and it will be answered by the same people that are generating the questions. It will be answered by us. What are we going to do differently to come in 2027 to ensure that we do not keep having this same set of people moving from one place to the other, pursuing only their agenda and reacting only to social media buzz? If it doesn't get to social media buzz, your leaders will not speak to you. So most people are going into position, they're not going to leadership. And if they're not going to lead, you will see them defecting. And when their aspirations are not met under a particular political party, they will cry foul and say something has gone wrong here and something has not gone wrong there. And then they'll move to the next one, and then you see the same pattern repeating itself, because the goal is not the people. The goal is the ambition. And that must change in 2027 if this nation will move forward. It is time for us to change.
Okay, let's take a quick beat. When we come back, we'll be saying thank you to our guests and taking more of your calls and contributions, if any. Stay with us.
I found something inside my Nescafe original